Hey everyone, this is Rachel. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. And I just came in today to do a reality show roundup. Now, this roundup involves Peter Thomas's appearance on the Wendy Williams show. Now, everyone knows Peter is Cynthia Bailey's husband from Real Housewives of Atlanta. So the story goes that Peter contacted the Wendy show, I guess, to set a few things straight on some of the things that Wendy had been reporting on her show. So he sits down with Wendy just basically to discuss the end of his marriage and some of the things that he felt contributed to the end of his marriage to Cynthia. Now, I'm going to say right off that I don't believe that Peter was taking responsibility for his part in the end of that marriage. There were a couple of things that he said that just left me with a little bad taste in my mouth. Wendy asked him if he was into being married, and Peter's response was that he loved being married. He loved going to bed with one woman and waking up with one woman. And I'm not going to say that, I disagree with him on that. I believe that he did love Cynthia, but some of the things that he did also contributed to the end of that marriage. The biggest problem that I had with what Peter said is when Wendy asked him whether he thought Cynthia was into being married. And Peter's response was, I don't think she embraced marriage, basically for the fact that she had been single all her adult life and had been independent all of her adult life. He went on to say that her getting married at 42, having to compromise and to share decisions and all of that, he didn't believe that she really embraced it the way that he did. Now, the reason why I take a little offense to that is there were things that Peter did in the marriage when he talked about sharing decisions, like going out, opening businesses, and not telling her. Now, I'm not saying that he took her money to do it, but those allegations were out there. But if you're in a marriage and you're the wife and you're just bopping along and you think that your husband has this particular business, bar one, and then the next thing you know, that business is closing and he's opening up another one and he didn't tell you about it, that would be a problem. He talks about sharing decisions, but when you're doing something as big as opening or closing a business, that is a decision that you sit down and you discuss it. Peter went, out there and opened businesses all over the place. He even went so far as to open a business in another city. We all sat and watched the show where Cynthia seemed surprised that these businesses were opening. And if she was faking that surprise, then Peter would have said that on the reunion shows. Now, also, those allegations of him flirting with other women. I'm not going to say that Peter actually, had an affair on Cynthia. None of us really knows that. But what Peter did do is he did a lot of flirting with other women, and that flirting got back to his wife in the form of pictures of him with other women in compromising positions, videos of him with other women in compromising positions. Because think about it, the pride and the macho-ness that Peter had, if he would have seen Cynthia in those same types of pictures or videos, allowing a man to rub his hand down her breast, or her like rubbing her hand all on a man's chest and kissing a man in a club, Peter would have hit the roof. That Jamaican anger would have come out, and any man for that matter would have been upset to see his wife doing things that he felt were disrespectful to him. Now, I just don't think Peter took responsibility for some of the things that he did. Let's just say that in their marriage, both of them did things wrong. It may be that Cynthia was used to being on her own, but Peter, you did nothing. You were innocent. We did not see that. Also, I believe that in their relationship, Peter began to take Cynthia for granted. When he said that she had waited those 42 years to get married, let's not forget, Cynthia had dated some pretty prominent men. If Cynthia wanted to get married prior to Peter, she would have gotten married. She had a baby by Leon. She could have married him. She dated Russell Simmons. There were quite a few men that Cynthia could have chosen to marry, men with money, but she chose him. She waited and she chose him. And for that, I'm not saying Peter should have been grateful, but it should have showed him that he came along at a time where she was ready and the man that she chose was him. Now, had that been me and I had been with a man who had been single all of his life, and when I came along, he decided to hang up that single card because he had chosen me, I would feel honored, and special. So I just don't feel like Peter was being totally 100 in that interview, because none of us knows what went on behind closed doors. There were probably a lot of things that both of them did to contribute to the end of that marriage. For him to get on television and kind of push everything off on her, I had a problem with that. I had a really big problem with that, because I'm pretty sure if Cynthia came on the Wendy show and sat down and probably told us some of the things that were happening behind closed doors, we probably would be surprised. I'm telling y'all, if he would have been opening and closing businesses, all willy-nilly and wasn't telling me, I would have a big problem with it. If I was seeing him out in pictures, and like I said, nobody's saying he actually cheated, but some of those pictures were a little bit much. And that one scene when she sat on the porch after that video came out of him kissing that girl and rubbing his hands all up and down her, I don't care how Peter explains that away, it didn't look right. Okay, I'm going to say it again. It did not look right. It didn't feel right. Let's just keep it real. We all saw that video. It did not feel right. And she was hurt. She was hurt. And whether her hurt was valid or not, when he saw that what he did hurt her, do you remember his response? He kind of chuckled and made it seem like she was being crazy. If he loved her, assure this woman that you're not out doing things. His behavior and some of the things that he did that we actually saw is what caused that marriage to end. Now, it may be that Cynthia is the type of woman, because she waited until she was 42 and had all those men, that she's saying, you know what, I don't need this. I gave it my best shot. I don't need it. And then that whole thing about him finding out on E that, they were getting divorced. Wasn't he living in another state and they really weren't having contact with each other? We saw that on the show. They weren't even living together. So, I don't think when you at the end, you are trying to be politically correct. Maybe Cynthia is just trying to cut her losses, and she said, to hell with him, I'm filing for divorce. Maybe at this point, she was mad at him, and she wasn't trying to think about his feelings. Now, I'm not trying to defend Cynthia, but I just think he was not being totally honest, and I don't feel like he was accepting any responsibility for anything. I didn't see where he said in the interview with Wendy that, in this relationship, Wendy, both of us did things wrong. It was 50-50. There were things that I know that I could have done better, and there were things that Cynthia could have done better. That's what, contributed to the end of our marriage. If he had said something like that, I would have rolled for Peter. I would have said, you know what? Peter is being very honest when it comes to, exactly what happened. But I just got the feeling that he was this innocent man that was in this relationship with this woman that didn't know how to compromise, and Cynthia was a bitch. And, if we had seen that on the show, I would have been all for what Peter said. But because of what we saw with our own eyes, think about that thing in the club where he was kissing that woman and rubbing his hands down her breast area. I mean, are we going to believe what he said or our lying eyes? So on this Wendy interview, I think it was a bunch of bullshit. It was his little Jamaican macho man thing. And, there's a lot of men that don't accept responsibility for what they, their contribution to the end of a marriage. I think Peter was trying to save face. And the fact that he's going to be on the show and this is all going to play out on the season, this is going to be something else. I think it's going to be painful to watch. I'm not kind of looking forward to it because I think it's going to put a lot of Cynthia's business out there that maybe she didn't want us to see, but we'll see. But I'm just going to end this by saying I don't think Peter was being totally honest on everything. And I really don't feel sorry for him per se. I feel sorry for the end of their marriage. That's what I'll say. I feel sorry for. I wish that there had been some way that they could have taken that time apart, both sat down and really thought about what they had and if they could salvage it, and maybe went to counseling to try to help them, because I do believe that they loved each other. I believe that maybe this show contributed to a lot of it. You got that big spotlight on you, and every little fault and little blip is magnified because you're on television. And they're both trying to save face. So we'll see what happens, in the next season. Like I said, I think this is going to be painful. And with that, everyone, thank you for watching. This was a really short one. I just wanted to talk about Peter on this one. You guys have a great day, and thanks again for watching.